Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Deciphering Design with Dikshu. Dikshu Kukreja is a passionate architect, someone who runs the famous firm CP Kukreja Architects. He has his establishment in Tokyo, New York and London. Let's go over to him to know about this episode.
In this journey of deciphering design, we have wandered through the fields of architecture, interiors, fashion, culinary, heritage, and more. There is, however, one field which has more impact on our lives than you can ever imagine, and that is policies. One stroke of a pen or a single legislation can simply alter the way our cities are built. Policies can shape the design direction of a nation. Equally significant is the role of each individual in evolving our design sensibilities. Today, society is progressing in a manner where we ascribe importance to the quality of life. Even nations look at their progress not just by a measure of their GDP, rather by a new index which is called Gross National Happiness, suggesting that there is a shift in our value systems from simply quantitative to qualitative measures. In this future world where happiness is the new currency, how will design be shaped by new policies? Is there any joy or even satisfaction we get from sleeping in a well-designed bed at home? Or sitting in a chair which is well designed at our workplace, or traveling in comfortable transport? Design is omnipresent. The name Jay Panda immediately reminds us of an eloquent, suave, and young politician. What many of us might not know, though, that he's also a passionate pilot, someone who's also been involved in journalism in his days while he spent in the US. He's also developed restaurants in New York and has been involved in industries. This is a politician who we all know as Baijayanth Jay Panda, our senior vice president of BJP and also in charge of the states of Delhi and Assam. My guest this evening, Baijayanth Jay Panda. Such a pleasure to be here today and to talk about a subject which I remember you had been almost entering into while you were pursuing engineering design. That's what you were studying in the US, engineering design and business. And I think one of the those tests that are done to determine, which is the field you can probably keep continuing, brought out the field of architecture. Is that correct?
Yes, when I studied engineering and communications in management. And in the second year, I was having some second thoughts. Thermodynamics will do that to any engineering student. And so the counselor had suggested that I take some aptitude tests. And what popped up at the top was architecture. So there were a couple of weeks that I seriously considered changing my major from engineering to architecture, but in the end I didn't. I completed the course that I was on. But I've always had an affinity for aesthetics, and I, as a lay person, appreciate good architecture.
As a layperson, since you chose not to pursue architecture, but that is perfectly fine because your interest in design has always remained, and your experiences of being in the US and then living in Odisha and Delhi, what are the aspects really that you can, come to your mind immediately when it's about architecture and planning? Because you've traveled around the world, you've lived in these different places. What thoughts come to your mind about architecture and planning, particularly in this part of the world?
I went to the US as a teenager and spent almost a decade. And before that, I'd been in boarding school. So in a sense, when I came back here in my mid-20s, there was some acclimatization required. But my parents had always taken great pride in our own culture, in our own history, and instilled in us an attitude of appreciating both what we've had as a nation and also the most modern elements in India and abroad, to find a synthesis between the two. So of course, when I came back in the 90s, India had suffered from many decades of low growth and inequity, and the changes that started happening, the economic changes and later political changes, have been very, very significant. Hundreds of millions of people have been brought out of poverty. And the architecture that we had inherited of, they resembled Eastern Bloc Soviet influences, very boxy structures. Aesthetics were given the go-by for what was considered pure efficiency, but in the end they were neither efficient, nor effective, nor aesthetic. But I think we are getting past that. You're seeing some of the most phenomenal developments in India in scale, in terms of aesthetics, and in a sense that is once again, I think it represents a renaissance of India in many different ways, because if you look at our ancient history, we've had some spectacular architecture in the past, and I think we are rediscovering our talents at it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I really do feel that we are at the cusp of what one can see can become another moment in history where we'll be remembered once again for the kind of architectural repertoire we've possessed in the past. So yes, the kind of development taking place across the country is beginning to show those kind of results. And for me personally, to see that as an architect as well, it's literally a dream come true. So you have also, I know, sometimes referred to yourself as an accidental politician. Now that's a very interesting way to put it, but how come that term is coined on yourself, by yourself, and why do you call yourself an accidental politician?
Well, I didn't come from a political family, and until very recently it was unusual for people from non-political families to be in politics, because there's been so much nepotism in the field. There's a big revolution happening today. I am from a business family, and in the 90s I was working in the family business and had to deal with all the hassles that India was known for: the red tape, the corruption, the bureaucracy, the restrictions. And I found I was spending more than 80% of my time doing that while competing with international competitors who spent all their time doing innovation and marketing and efficient production and operations. And so that I used to complain about the system, and friends would tell me to either do something about it or to stop complaining. And one thing led to another, and I happened to stumble into politics, really. So it was not something that I had planned for from my student days or any such thing.
And that's how an accidental politician. But I think it's a great transition, because you're right, so many of us just have this, develop it almost as a habit that we are complaining about the system, but few of us decide actually to go ahead and do something about it, and you have done that. So being on the side of business and industry and then moving into politics and policy making, where do you feel that in terms of policy making itself, that can have an impact on design, on the way our cities, our urban environment develops?
So first of all, I don't think everybody has to get into politics. When I say that, when we just discussed about people complaining and the need to do something about it, it doesn't mean everybody has to get into politics. I think what it implies is that people have to stop being apathetic about the state of our politics. I think they have to get interest. At the very least, people must vote. I think their right to complain should be taken away if they don't vote. And I think they should do more. They can be active in propagating ideas that they believe in, whether it is about the environment. And when it comes to policy and design, I think there's a great confluence about the topic we've been discussing and your profession. So if you look at the post-World War II era of, say, public transportation, the US set the agenda with automobiles, and there were choices to be made at that time for public transport, which many countries consciously didn't do. In retrospect, it seems perhaps more should have been done. There are great examples of how big public transport projects in New York, for instance, were stymied and cut short by political opposition, not because of reason or logic or design considerations. So what is happening in India today, I think we have this new window of opportunity where massive public projects are happening. The metros that have come up in Indian cities over the last 2 decades, the bullet train project, the massive expansion of highways and ports and airports and waterways. I think we are doing this on a scale that has rarely been done before. I mean, China is one example, of course, in recent decades, but even if you consider what was done in Europe and America earlier, we have I think the opportunity today to set the agenda as to what public spaces, public transportation, and what the quality of life is going to be and ought to be in the 21st century.
You're absolutely right about this, because when we see the example you've taken about a policy in the US towards, which was sort of, having this bent towards automotives rather than public transport, it really had ramifications across the world, because for decades people thought that's the way to go. Progress means that, you just keep building more and more roads and you have personal transport, that is cars, and that's the way for progress. It's only now we are realizing slowly but surely that public transportation and the way metros are coming across cities, and now the new policy, when we look at, for example, in Delhi, we are designing a project where Delhi DDA introduced this policy of transit-oriented development, and we happen to be designing one of the first such projects, and it makes so much difference to a city, because the moment such a policy is introduced, what it's saying is that rather than developing an urban sprawl that you just keep building limitlessly and the city keeps expanding, you actually densify nodes in a city where you have an easy public commute. If you have a metro station, you build more around it, and it's easier to go to your work, commute to your work or to your home, etc., etc. So I think policies in that sense can make so much difference. That's an interesting point, because I've always felt that, when we look at things in India in terms of planning, we give it careful thought, but sometimes we don't give it thought in the time span that it's required. We look at a short term, we don't look at the long term. Now, this whole initiative that has been taken was about deciphering design. Over the last few weeks, we've been looking at design in different facets of our life, just to see how can design really truly enhance the quality of our life and bring that joy and happiness into our being. One of the aspects obviously we wanted to touch upon, and today you have, as usual, very eloquently shared ideas about policies. I would still leave by asking you that where do you see India's future, or even the world's future for that matter, is where policies can shape something for us in terms of the new way of looking at design?
So look at the large transformational projects that are happening. We had developed a mindset in this country that we can't do things on that scale. We can't do it well. We can't do urbanization well, and so we shouldn't. And so we get rooted in a mindset that, for example, this argument between how do you preserve heritage and yet how do you also plan for the future. And you touched upon this earlier when you said that we don't seem to be able to do any improvement of the bad urbanization that we have created, and we just keep creating new cities and more sprawl. That doesn't solve the problem, it just kicks the can further down the road. Look at South Delhi. All of South Delhi used to be farmland or jungles 2 generations ago, and it's now created urban sprawl. Not all of it has been well designed. Whatever has been well designed are in gated communities, and that's okay, but is that what we want to be? Do we all want to be in different silos, different gated communities? No. So what that means is we can and should have the confidence. We have demonstrated the ability that we can start doing things better. Our infrastructure today is some of the best in the world, and this reflects a global change also. When you and I were in the US, the infrastructure there was considered superb. Today, a lot of the infrastructure of the US is far behind that of China or Southeast Asia. And India had not been considered as a place that has good infrastructure until recently. And suddenly you have these airports and expressways and many other things developing. The central vista that is being developed in Delhi, some of the large projects that you have been involved in, major convention centers and also representing India in international destinations, these are milestones which represent that we today have the confidence to take up major projects that are good, that we can implement properly, that benefit the population, and they are icons. We should be creating iconic developmental projects that the world looks up to once again. I think we are on the way to doing it.
I think so too. I think so too when we look back, when our time we were there in the US almost 25 years ago or more, and now how much our nation has progressed. And I've always believed in this very simple saying that look at the half glass full. And really our glass is filling up when we look at the nation's progress, and it gives me delight to see that even from the design point of view, that we are beginning to understand design better. This journey of these episodes in the last few weeks was about deciphering design. I'm sure our viewers have also been able to decipher it to some extent, and the journey will continue. But the kind of future you have painted before us is not only promising, it's exciting. And thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your thoughts and ideas. And I'm sure we have a great journey ahead of us. And I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed this.
Do stay with us on the other side of the break.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching Deciphering Design with Dikshu. Dikshu, you've had a very interesting conversation today with Jay Panda. And taking ahead from that, what you spoke about, I really want to ask you, issues like planning and designing, they're considered very important, when you talk about something in future and stuff like that. As an architect, what are the other aspects that you consider are important for a holistic growth?
I think, growth has to be seen in a larger perspective. Growth, I believe, cannot be for some at the cost of others. So for me, growth is about, one, it has to be something which is on an equalitarian basis. It should be inclusive. It should be for people, not just, for example, in cities, but cities, towns, villages. It has to be an inclusive growth. The second aspect of growth is that it cannot, as I've always maintained, be at the cost of our nature, our environment. Yes. It has to be something which is in harmony with nature and environment. So that means it has to be a sustainable growth from the sustainability angle. And the third aspect, I think it should also be sustained growth, because there's nothing like, a country or a society or cities grow for a few years and then there are an era or period of decline and then they grow again. It can't be in that intermittent fashion. So I think it has to be inclusive, it has to be sustainable, and it has to also be, very importantly, sustained.
Dikshu, very interestingly, what you're saying, infrastructure, if you talk about, what you've spoken about today also, now we're seeing a large growth in that in our country. People like yourself, architects, how important do you think you should be a part of policy making? Because stuff like you just said right now, it's not very easy for maybe basic policy makers, bureaucrats in that matter, to understand those aspects.
See, I feel, and this is not I'm saying because I'm an architect, yes, but I think it has been successfully seen world over in many global cities, countries. You see that there are architects and planners who are very, very intrinsically involved, actively involved in the policy making. Yes. And that is because really, if you see architecture as a profession and even planning, we are trained in a wide field. You have, as part of our training, there's sciences, mathematics, physics, there is humanities, there is geology, geography. So all these aspects come into the training of an architect or planner. So from that perspective, when when it is about policy making, I think architects can play a very important and vital role in policy making. This has been, like I said, seen in different parts of the world, but in India, I have noticed that in the past at least, we have had a very two-dimensional approach to policy making and planning. We have not looked at a long-term perspective many times. I think the trend is changing, and I think the inclusion of architects and planners in this process of policy making can even make a much greater difference to that process of change that we see now.
Another thing that I want to know from your desires of, architecture, over the years, what we thought that could be achieved, would want to achieve kind of thing in architecture, be that, high-rise buildings, having sky forest kind of things, all that now we see is existing. Is there something in your idea and vision that you think is going to be achieved in the near future?
So when I look back, when I came back to India in mid-90s, and I see in the last 25 odd years, there has been such leap of progress here, and design also is starting to be looked at more importantly, and that is why we have been talking about this in the last few weeks, to bring design really to the center stage.
Yes.
But the kind of development happening in this country is of a very large size and scale. So there has been a lot of progress in terms of new ideas that are coming up. I remember back when I was studying architecture, I had proposed the concept of the underground metro, which was there in other cities in the world, but nowhere in India really it was there. Calcutta just had a little piece of it, but I said that metro is the future of this country, and underground construction. Why do we always think of building above ground and going higher and higher? There's also the possibility to build underground. So that's one of the thinkings that is beginning to be realized, and I see there's a great potential in that. And the other aspect I also feel as a future planning, that we've always had this issue of building on land, and then we keep talking about that land is very finite, and then there are issues that how can you keep expanding. But if we look at our earth, there is so much water around, and I think rather than just congesting on land, there is technologically possibilities of building on water as well. So this is something I've always maintained, and it's nice to see now that, yes, I see that smile on your face, but trust me, it's happening, and there are now cities that are ideas are there out there where things are happening on water. So I see that also as a possibility in the future.
That'll be interesting to have a house like an island, that'll be interesting to watch if we can have that.
Of course.
But Dikshu, this is the last episode of a very exciting series, I would say for myself, something very different that thanks to you I've been able to, explore and understand, and so have viewers on NewsX, Architecture, design, art has had a very different idea in mind, and thanks to you, we've been able to interact with such interesting personalities who've brought about such great information on the show. We've had a lot of learning. I have personally had a lot of learning. What has your learning been, if I would say, from this very exciting show?
So first of all, I know when we talked about it earlier and you approached me with this whole idea of design, one was apprehensive that while I believe very passionately about it, and I think it's such an important part of our life, how does one communicate that across and make people realize also that there are so many facets to design all across in our lives that we can start sensitizing ourselves to. So I really was apprehensive in terms of how will people react to it. Of course, the response has been phenomenal, and it's great to see that, yes, we have struck a chord with our viewers, and I really want to thank our viewers for the kind of response we've been getting. I mean, those Ask Dikshu questions, we've been swarmed with that, and people are really reacting to this whole idea that, yes, design is all around us.
Yeah, because prior to the show, I would have never thought that, there was so much design in food, there was so much design in movement. I love automobiles, but I would have never thought the way you helped us understand. And even what we spoke about today, the way forward, the urban planning, the policy making, all of that. But very interesting thing that I would like to tell our viewers, Dikshu has been a part of a lot of, shows where he has been a panelist. For the first time, now you're an anchor also, so now you're taking our jobs. How did that feel? How did that feel to be in a very different spot?
No, I'm not taking your job. I have a job back there in my office, which I thoroughly enjoy. But yes, it does feel great to be able to talk to people from these different fields, from politics to fashion to the food industry. We've been able to meet so many people.
Yes.
Of course, during this pandemic times where one has not been able to really showcase to our viewers experiences of moving in buildings. I mean, you know,
Yes.
that is something that has not been possible really, but nevertheless, the ability to communicate with so many people across industry, and you see that there is a shared sense of passion towards design. So I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed talking to people. It's been fun to, yes, be questioned, to question rather than be questioned, but then you are always there to question me, right?
That has always been very interesting. But on that note, one thing I would say, you've left us with a very interesting hint of we've not been able to experience actually the buildings. There's a lot of great work that you have done, and I'm not saying that because you're sitting here, but it's a fact, you know, and the work that you're going to do ahead, like the G20 building that's going to come up in Dwarka, that's going to happen. There are a lot many other projects which I think hope this pandemic gets over and we are able to get there and show our viewers. So I can say we're leaving them on a note that we might have a season 2 for something exciting over there.
Yes, let's see what the future holds for us, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dikshu. Thank you so much for, you know, helping us understand architecture better, and for our viewers to get a better sense of it, and for helping them understand that there is art and architecture all around them.
It's been so much fun, Richa, interacting with you on this whole journey of deciphering design. And for me, what has been really the best takeaway is that the way our viewers have enjoyed it.
That's excellent. Thank you. And thank you all. Thank you so much for watching this show, watching this series with us. Because just as Dikshu said, it is important for all of us to be connected. And in a very interesting way, we all got connected through art. Thank you so much for watching this episode as well and this series. Hope we see you sometime soon with the next series.
Absolutely.
Like edgy chic or relaxed luxury.
बोलते हैं ना कि आज शेफ का मूड खराब है क्या?
Right.
My name is Impossible.
We are here in this magnificent Mysore palace.
If you don't have design, you can never find the designer.
These guys are good, man.